Erik Horne here with my esteemed panel of guests from Andscape.com. Bill Rhoden, Jean-Jacques Taylor, president of JJT Media Group, and senior HBCU writer Mia Berry. And we are talking about a myriad of football decisions and results from the past week. Let's start with Delaware State hiring DeSean Jackson.
Yeah.
That was the tone when I read it. That was the tone when it came across my phone. I'm very excited for DeSean Jackson. I think I'm excited for Delaware State. Mia, can you start us off with kind of your initial reactions to this, and what are your thoughts considering that you got your pulse on the HBCU beat and on the DeSean Jackson decision and the speed at which this decision was made?
Listen, when I first heard it, I didn't even know DeSean Jackson was throwing his hat in the ring for college coaching jobs. So it caught me by surprise. But, doing a little research, I called a couple friends out in California who had worked with him previously. And they told me DeSean Jackson, he was a wide receiver coach last season at Wilson High School, and that he had that feeling he wanted to be a head coach. So that when Delaware State hired, they told me this was an excellent hire in terms of who he is and the mentorship he brings to young men and his connections with California recruiting. Everyone knows when it comes to the big three in high school recruiting, it's Florida, Texas, Cali. And they told me, like, hey, Delaware State, they're going to get some dogs. His connection to Long Beach Poly already. He has players, former players he's mentored in the past. He's offered scholarships toward. So they told me to expect DeSean to surround himself with experienced coaches and for him to be able to pull the type of recruits. They compared it to the Mike Vick in down the Hampton Roads in Norfolk State. So I'm excited. I kind of am more excited to see that Norfolk State, Delaware State matchup this season. I don't know about the turnaround with DeSean just because he doesn't have head coaching experience. And I know he's bringing some high school guys with him. So I can't wait to see. But he also is Philly legend, DeSean Jackson. And that's only an hour and a half drive. So I expect some Philly kids to maybe want to learn under DeSean as well.
We still can't believe that, DeSean Jackson took the job. I think much like, it's that Deion became a trendsetter for doing this. It's, can you put a staff around you to handle things? Because there's an adjustment to, even if you've been an assistant coach at the high school level, being an adjustment to being a head coach at the college level where you're responsible for everybody and everything, from compliance to grades, and just trying to keep a handle on all of that is, a lot to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. When I heard it, I was fresh from, I was down at the Norfolk for the Vic, for the Vic press conference. And then right on the heels of which I was still digesting that, and then DeSean gets hired, says, oh, okay, here we go. It's a trend now, and I guess because I went to an HBCU, I'm always fascinated by these guys like Vic, like Deion, like DeSean, who went to Cal Berkeley, and I get it. They didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't go in HBCU, and I don't want this to be a thing about that. In fact, it came up in Vic's press conference, is that, well, you didn't do it, coming out of high school in Newport News, you walk right past Norfolk, Virginia Tech. And he kind of danced around it. Well, the truth was that, well, I had a lot of offers. I wanted to play on a bigger stage than Norfolk could offer me. And, and I think the same thing with DeSean. So that's just my own little rant and in each case, the HBCU answers that, well, that's our role. That's what they say at Jackson State. That's what they'll say at Delaware State. That's what they said at Norfolk. Our role is to give folks who did not have an opportunity. So, DeSean will get an opportunity. I think he was, like you said, man, he was a wide receivers coach and a coordinator in high school. Vic had no coaching experience. He was going to be something, but the league failed. So, like Mia said, we'll see. I thought the same thing, Mia. Yeah, it'll be great when Delaware State plays Norfolk State. And also, just sort of my last point before we move on, not only do they have to deal with the coaching, I mean, it was a funny line. Vic said, "I worked harder in these last 3 weeks, and I worked in the last 6 years because it's hard, hard, hard work." And Deion also, remember, Deion had already had a quarterback who he had coached, his son. He already had another son, and his second year he snatched Travis Hunter. So we'll see. I mean, I'm curious to see how it plays out, but it's great PR for the schools. They get a nice bump. But like you said, we'll see.
Ultimately, though,
We'll
you got to
see.
coach because, don't forget, we ain't mentioned Eddie George, who's done a nice job at Texas State. This is fourth year. They won 9 games this year.
Yeah.
They won the Ohio Valley Conference because he did it the right way. He came prepared to do the work, and he spent 4 years building a program, and now they're really ready to win because it's the Eddie George culture. They've won now, and so he can build on it. And so the only thing you hope is that whether it's Vic or whether it's DeSean Jackson, that they are prepared mentally for just the work that is required to get it done. Because especially at Delaware State or at Norfolk, you're not going to be working with the kind of budget where you can snap your fingers and say, "Hey, I need this. When's it coming?" Mm-hmm. Who knows? Maybe you get it next week. Maybe you get it next month. Maybe you get it next year.
Right. If at all.
It's the new era of HBCU. I think HBCUs are starting this new era of college football where X's and O's aren't the sole thing that, athletic departments will be hiring on in the future. Look at UNC and Bill Belichick, and you see with MEAC, you got Mike Vick. You got DeSean Jackson. You had Deion Sanders, you have Eddie George. I'm thinking these schools are also looking at, okay, a coach can come in here. What is he also going to bring to this institution in terms of publicity, in terms of, monetary value? Like, what connections do they have? How can they really come in and help and aid and improve this program? I've covered Delaware State, so when they hired DeSean, I'm like, well, this team's won 2 games in 2 seasons. So I'm like,
why not?
Why?
What do we have to lose? Yeah. And I mean, again, I just, the concept of, and I think that's what you were hinting at, JJT, is that not only is coaching hard, no matter where you go, but you go to an HBCU or a small budget, and all of a sudden, I'm exaggerating, but you got to line the field, rehearse the band, write the news story, you got to do a lot of stuff. So, I just hope, and maybe at least DeSean, coach, I just hope in Vic's case, that this you don't get bored, or you don't get overwhelmed by how much work it is. And I'm out of here,
No, that's why it's important that you understand what's required, and that's why it's important that you put really competent people around you. This ain't just about hiring your boys. It's about hiring really people who can do the job. Now, if your boys can do the job, it's all good. But this just can't be your people. Otherwise, you're going to be overwhelmed and overworked.
Right.
Yeah. JJT, Bill, can I pose a question to you? Because one thing, we've been talking about these celebrity hires from Deion to Eddie to Vic to DeSean Jackson. But one thing that's really been popping up in my head, how do you think this changes the landscape of, HBCU coaches, especially when you have coaches that have been HBCU guys for decades, Division II level, NAIA levels that haven't gotten those opportunities? Like, I think to Sean Gibbs at North Carolina A&T and how this man put in 2 decades of being an HBCU coach and finally got his opportunity to be a Division I HBCU coach. Or Sam Shade, who was just hired yesterday for Alabama A&M, another D2 guy that stepped up, Damon Wilson, Bowie to Morgan. I think about those guys that have put in the work and the time and have dedicated their coaching careers and lives to HBCUs. What happens when, this becomes a bigger trend and those guys aren't given the opportunities anymore because they're getting surpassed for NFL players?
Nothing. The same thing that happens when journalists get surpassed for athletes off the field to go do analyst work at studios and have no journalistic training. Nobody ever said life is fair, so it's not. So you have to deal with your circumstances and, take advantage of your opportunities. And if it take you 20 years to get there, hey, doc, you better make the most of it. So, life is always filled with these things, whether it's athlete privilege or some other kind of privilege. It just happens, and so you got to deal with it.
Yes, I mean it's a great question, Mia. Because even remember the famous interaction between Eddie
Robinson
Robinson
Jr.
and Deion, right? When he says, "You ain't swag." So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably if this trend continues, I'm sure there will be some grumbling. And you're right. I mean, if you're a former NFL player, and you want to coach, you say, "Hey, man, I'll go to the HBCU route," because they're grateful, they'd appreciate me. So, but we all know, just with any other trend, if the next 5, 10 years it's a disaster, then they say, well, why don't we go back to people who understand HBCU culture? But that is a great question. How do you feel if you committed your life to the HBCU universe, and all of a sudden the DeSean Jacksons and Michael Vicks come in? And the other thing about Eddie George, they played in a white conference. So I don't know if that means they get more resources at Tennessee State because they play, what is that? The Missouri
Ohio Valley Conference?
Yeah, Ohio Valley.
Yeah, obviously.
Maybe that is slightly different. I don't know, but
A&T's and CAA as well.
Yeah, and Hampton and rumors that they're crying to get back. So, like I said, it's a fascinating story. For us, it's great. It's great, and it'll even be great covering. Like I said, we're both marking our calendars when Delaware State visits Norfolk. What's that going to look like? But at the bottom line, who's going to beat South Carolina State? Who's going to beat NCC? Because this is all well and good, but I was speaking with the MEAC commissioner before the Vic press conference, and she was saying, well, this is all well and good, but you got to win games. This will only go so far. If you have another 2 and something season, then you'll just be Michael Vick, who went 2 and something. So, we'll see. It would be great if he can get, like Deion got Travis. It would be great if some visionary high school quarterback said, "Hey, man, I'd love to spend a year or 2 with Michael Vick. I mean, learn the position from him. I mean, why not?" And then who knows? Maybe in 3 years we'll be off to Texas A&M or something.
Now that would be great,
right?
Deion laid out a roadmap for this, and Deion might not be SWAC, but Deion's Big 12. He might be AFC South for all we know. Because the perfect segue. I'm looking at the 2025 NFL draft order right now. And the New England Patriots have the number 1 pick, Tennessee's 2, Cleveland 3, Giants 4. JJT, I'll start with you. After the offensive embarrassment by Colorado in the Alamo Bowl against BYU, does this do anything to affect Shedeur Sanders not going number 1? New England will probably be looking to trade out since they have Drake May, but how does this affect Shedeur Sanders, if anything? Your answer just might be it doesn't at all.
Yeah, I don't think the bowl game performance has anything to do with his performance. You got 4 years and 40-something games to figure out if you like him as a quarterback. I think, and I'm not sure he's going number 1 as a quarterback. I can see Cam Ward going before Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
He'll be one of the top 2 quarterbacks, I think. But I think the first pick, like if you got New England, you got Drake May. Travis Hunter makes perfect sense. You can pair him with Christian Gonzalez and be like, we're finna lock folks down for the next decade, and we can get him on offense too. So to me, he makes perfect sense there. And if you play it right, you can convince one of those 2 teams that needs a quarterback to jump up for you, give you a bounty full of picks, and still get Travis Hunter at number 2 or number 3.
Mm-hmm. If I'm Deion, I'm doing everything possible to make it to where one of these teams either comes up to get him or Cleveland stays away. Because I don't know if Cleveland has it in them to actually pull the trigger, because it seems like the DeSean experiment is over, but who knows? Cleveland's a terribly run franchise.
Their money isn't over.
Cleveland is a franchise Shedeur won't be going to.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
just manifest that. Let's manifest that for Shedeur. And for Cam Ward too, frankly, because I don't know Cam Ward, but I don't want Cam Ward to go to Cleveland because I don't want anything good for Cleveland. So let's just please get, maybe he'll fall to the Saints. I don't know. Wishful thinking. But I wouldn't feel bad with any of those brothers in Tennessee, honestly. As long as they don't go to Cleveland. Bill, Mia, I don't know how y'all feel coming off of the bowl game. Like JJT said, I agree. I don't think that does anything for Shedeur's stock. But when I was looking at it from a Colorado perspective and what they need to improve on going into next season, I know bowls aren't the end-all, be-all, and some of the bowl stuff is completely separate from what we saw in the regular season. They had a successful regular season. You get a bunch of time off. Teams have more time to prepare for you. But what's the next step for Deion Sanders and company going into next season, aside from the quarterback thing, obviously? What else do we need to see from them?
Well, I mean, I think with them, it's phase 2, which is building a sustained winner. They continue to improve their offensive and defensive line. They got 2 4-star offensive linemen who's supposed to be really good. They added 1 4-star lineman. They got the best defensive tackle in the portal. So they understand. I mean, Deion is a football guy. He knows that they're always going to be able to attract playmakers. It's what can you do on the offensive and defensive lines to make yourself better. The beauty for Deion in Colorado is, and I talked about it a little bit, is they're now being touched by success, which is they had a player enter the portal and go to Alabama. That's really a compliment. Ain't nobody from the 1-11 team go nowhere. And the other thing is they had their offensive line coach, Phil Lodeholt, and their defensive assistant, Vincent Dancy, who was Mississippi Valley State's head coach and came to Colorado with Deion as a defensive assistant, not even a position coach. They both left to go to Mississippi State yesterday. So this is what happens when you have success. Your roster gets rated, your coaching staff gets rated, and you still got to rebuild for the future because, part of the reason they got beat by BYU, just a part of the reason, is what did everybody talk about all week? Colorado. Wasn't nobody paying attention to BYU, media-wise. And so, you get salty when all that happens, like, oh, you ain't talking to us all week? Okay, we got something for you. It's like that every time Colorado plays because they're the dominant team, the dominant personality, whichever team they play for the most part. And this is just part of the process.
Yeah. Go ahead, man.
I agree with JJT. One thing I was going to point out, the departures of the coaching staff to Mississippi State. I think he needs to fill in those spots as well, but we're used to seeing coaching turnover. I want to really see the development because Deion Sanders had a hand-picked quarterback for 4 seasons. Now, come on, it doesn't get any better than you basically taking a quarterback and molding, growing, and developing this quarterback for 20 years. A college coach is never going to get that opportunity. This man had 20 years to make his perfect quarterback.
Right.
He's going to have what? He's going to have a couple months. He has Caden Salter out of Liberty. He has 5-star Julian Lewis. It's going to be an expedited process when it comes to developing and getting those guys up to a Shedeur level, up to a top 5 potential prospect level. They have some time. They can still grow and develop, but I think it's going to start there for Colorado. Yeah. That's one thing.
You see what Mia just did there? This is what happens when you win. She done said Julian Lewis got to play the Shedeur standard and Caden Salter got to play the top 5 NFL draft standard. And that's what happens coming now. Expectations are now here. You got to win. If you don't win 9 games, you had a raggedy season. If you didn't get to the conference championship, you had a raggedy season. So this is why it's hard to build a sustained winner because you got all of this going on. But that's the goal. So that's what's required. But
I think my thought after seeing Colorado get shellacked, is a couple things. Like you said, JJT, I mean, it's rest versus rust. They were off, and they had so much energy and momentum, just emotionally. They had so much. They really had a great season. They capped it off. Then you're resting. There's a Heisman, energy going to that. Everybody talking about Travis's fiance. there's so many other things, and you're right. Meanwhile, not Boise State.
BYU.
They're like seething, like everybody Colorado plays. They're the seething. We just want to knock these guys off. Only thing, so I don't really put, but the only thing I did think, Deion Sanders probably just realized, if he had already, this stuff is going to be hard. This is going to be, this is a portent of things to come. Not that they're going to lose, but this is going to be a hard rebuilding job, because people are still, and you look at Arizona State is made the championship. Utah's already had a good program. So this is going to be very, very, very challenging for all the reasons you said, Mia, trying to get another quarterback. Whoever they get is not going to be like Shedeur, because this is his son. And he had, like you said, he built the perfect for him quarterback. And I don't see any Travis Hunter on the horizon up and down that roster.
Okay.
So, and
nobody got a Travis Hunter.
Maybe the Patriots. Hold on. Maybe the Patriots in a couple of months.
Yeah, the Patriots may have Travis Hunter. Yeah. So the question is, Erik, will you be sending us out to Boulder next year? To either pick up the pieces or rejoice and wow, Deion's a great coach after all. Look, they're like, they got off to a 6-0 start.
But I think that the story is still one of the most.
Hey, Erik, or will we be going to Norfolk State?
Okay.
Hey, I'll be in Norfolk. We can split it. No.
Well, Norfolk that's an easy trip for you, Bill. So I'm not so much worried about the East Coast thing. I think that all of these stories are interesting. Obviously what we've talked about in Deion kind of starting this trend of coaches getting an opportunity at the HBCU level that have that NFL experience, and like Mia said, can connect on more beyond the X's and O's, and can potentially draw in some good staffs. But the Colorado story to me is still interesting. Like Mia said, he had 20 years to build this guy. And we know that the most important position in arguably all of sports is quarterback. And now it seems like Deion Sanders has done well at recruiting the most important position in all of sports. I want to see what that looks like. I want to see if Caden Salter can maintain the same levels with, he might not have a Travis Hunter next year, but the overall talent might actually be better in Colorado because Deion is bringing in key transfers and he's recruiting well, for what it seems like. So I want to see what that looks like. I think that story is still intriguing. So yes, the answer is Bill. Get your butt on a plane. We're going to Boulder.
Yeah, and touching on what JJT said about expectations, I agree. Expectations are high. One win previous, that 4-win felt like, oh my God, that was amazing. 4 wins? Now you showed us 9 wins? Hold on now. The standard's going to keep raising and raising. And then next year, I already know the expectations. People want a conference championship. People want, you showed you can be bowl eligible. People are going to want Deion to turn that 0-3 into a 1-3 bowl record next season. So I agree with the expectations raising and raising. And Deion's come through. People doubted when he went to Colorado. He's improved and developed his players every single year. He's gotten them out of the transfer portal, addressed the needs he can. I think next year is going to really show us I feel like next year, if he continues the same success, that's when everybody's going to have that come into Jesus moment. Oh, this man is actually as good as what people have been saying he is for the last several seasons.
And JJT, you might be able to speak to this, and Mia as well. But, a lot we've been talking about the last few weeks is Deion being able to recruit well and be able to get these kids to come in and help them in key positions. But I want to continue to see if he can kind of be a Pied Piper of sorts and continue to do that with coaches as well. I want to see if he's able to bring, the Pat Shurmur hire, we kind of scoffed at it when it happened because we're like, oh, he failed with the Giants, whatever. He's going back to college. It's a good hire. And bringing in these other guys who have NFL experience. I want to see if he can continue to bolster his staff with guys who have the experience and if he can get some really good coordinators and position coaches to continue to come to Boulder, and if Boulder's willing to pay for those guys to be there.
I think that's all part of his deal. I mean, don't forget his first 2 coordinators are now head coaches, Sean Lewis and Charles Kelly. You got 2 guys off this staff have been hired now. What you have to remember is Deion's network is vast because he played for so long.
Did you say net worth or network?
Both.
Okay, just checking. All right.
Network.
You said money and connections.
Is vast, and so he can touch a lot of people. And sometimes it's a friend of a friend because he's a guy who will tell you when he got putting his first staff together, he said, I want to run this kind of offense. He called Mike Leach. Hey, I want to run this kind of offense. Who are the best coaches I can hire to do that? And Leach gave him a name, and one of them ran his offense at Jackson State and is now his tight ends coach. So he can touch a lot of people, and he's going to always have good candidates. And then because he's Deion, he'll go get somebody like Robert Livingston, who's off the radar because he knows exactly what he wants and exactly how this guy can fit. And so he's a good talent acquisition guy, whether you're talking about players or coaches, because he understands what he's trying to do and what his personal vision is.
It'll probably only get better. There's a learning curve for all these guys. We mentioned DeSean and Vic, and you're right. What Deion realized is that your staff is so important. Getting the right people and getting beyond just the celebrities who can coach. Because I think you made the point too. For the coaches, this is an opportunity too. Guys who may have not coached or been coaching high school. And so, and it's not just an HBCU thing or Colorado thing. Every coach is looking for the next level. Whether you're at James Madison and you're going to Indiana University or wherever, everybody's looking to climb the rung. And I think that Deion is kind of developing his reputation of curating and developing talent. But now, to Mia's point, there's also this higher bar. So you're doing two things. You're developing talent, but you're looking for better talent, maybe some even ready-made talent, because we don't really have time to be teaching a lot of stuff. People are expecting us. The bowl was nice. Not the result, but getting to the Alamo Bowl was nice. Now your rival, Arizona State, is in the playoffs. People are going to be clamoring for that. Said, we need to take that next step. So, it's fascinating, but you're right. Deion is developing his reputation as what did Dawn Staley call it? A dream maker, as a developer of talent, which is pretty cool.
Expectations are a good thing to have, yo. If we were talking about it the other way, that would not be a good thing. We would be talking about Deion being a bust in Colorado, right. And Colorado making a mistake. And then there is no Michael Vick. There is no DeSean Jackson. There is no opportunity. And maybe there is because Eddie George has been successful. But I really do think that there's a through line there from Deion's success leading to these guys getting these opportunities. And that's a positive, y'all. That's a positive that, we're seeing these hires happen. But we're about wrapped up here, y'all. I appreciate everybody coming on. Thanks for joining us again on Andscape Roundtable. Check us out on Andscape.com. JJT's been putting out some great pieces on Colorado past few days. Check out his piece on Caden Salter, who's going to be the next Colorado quarterback, we assume, we think, and how he's going to balance that relationship with Julian Lewis. JJT, really enjoyed that piece. And
thank you, sir.
We will talk to y'all soon.